The late autumn light had a way of touching everything in gold, and on this day, it seemed almost sentient. As if it knew it was being invited into a love story the entire country had been waiting to see reach its most beautiful chapter. The venue itself felt like it had been stolen from a dream. High, vaulted ceilings draped with hundreds of strands of warm fairy lights created a galaxy above the heads of the gathered guests. Every table was a soft bloom of blush roses and white orchids. A subtle nod to the first bouquet Rowoon had given Park Eun-bin years ago during the filming of their first drama together. The faint scent of lavender, her favorite, lingered in the air like a quiet blessing, woven into the floral arrangements and even the fabric napkins. Outside, beyond the grand entrance, friends pressed behind velvet ropes, craning their necks just to catch the briefest glimpse of the stars of the day. They had waited hours, some since before dawn, armed with banners, flowers, and phones ready to capture a single moment. A low hum of excitement rippled through the crowd each time a celebrity guest arrived, from industry veterans to fellow rising stars. Inside, however, the atmosphere was calmer, though charged with a kind of anticipation that comes when everyone knows they are about to witness history. When the music swelled for the ceremony, the air in the room shifted. Rowoon stood at the altar, his posture straight but his fingers twitching slightly at his sides. He had been calm during the rehearsal, even joking with the staff. But now his eyes betrayed his nerves. And then she appeared. Park Eun-bin stepped into view, the train of her gown catching the light, her veil like a halo. The room collectively inhaled. Rowoon's expression changed instantly, tenderness, and something deeper. Something that made it seem as if the hundreds of eyes on them no longer existed. The vows were an exchange of laughter and tears. She teased him about how he could never finish a cup of coffee without leaving at least a third untouched. And he admitted that he had never been able to watch her cry on screen without feeling an ache in his chest. "I promise to be your home," he told her, steady despite the tears in his eyes. "No matter where life takes us." The guests clapped, some wiping their own eyes. The rings were slipped onto trembling fingers and the kiss was met with applause. The reception unfolded in a haze of joy. A live band tucked discreetly in the corner played soft jazz, the kind that warmed the edges of a cold evening. The clink of champagne flutes punctuated bursts of laughter from the tables. Photographers flitted silently, capturing candid moments of friends hugging, parents smiling, and children dancing near the dessert table. But for all the merriment, there was an unspoken curiosity growing at the head table. Beside Rowoon's seats at a medium-sized wooden box, simple, unadorned, and somehow utterly captivating. Park Eun-bin had noticed it when she first sat down. "What's this?" she had asked, her fingertips brushing the smooth wood. Rowoon had only smiled, that warm, knowing smile she had fallen for, and said, "Later." She had laughed, shaking her head. But every so often her gaze would drift back to it, wondering what he could possibly be hiding. To her, Rowoon was already a man of quiet surprises, kind who could turn an ordinary afternoon into a memory worth keeping. But this felt different. There was a weight to it. Gravity in the way he occasionally glanced at the box, as if making sure it was still there. What she didn't know was that this moment had been months in the making. After their engagement, Rowoon had begun working on this gift in secret. He had confided only in a handful of people, her parents, his best friend, a few close colleagues. Some days he was seen slipping into an old bookstore on the far side of the city, other days he was spotted in a recording studio long past midnight. There had been whispered phone calls, meetings with people from her past she hadn't seen in years, and one memorable afternoon when he drove 4 hours just to pick up an item he had been told no longer existed. Every step, every detail, was deliberate. The speeches had finished, heartfelt tributes from friends, playful roasts from co-stars, and tender words from family. The music began to fade, and the room's hum quieted. Then, without announcement, the lights dimmed just slightly. Rowoon rose from his seat, the wooden box in his hands now, and walked toward the center of the hall. Conversation stilled, heads turned. He took the microphone from the stand, his gaze finding Park Eun-bin's across the room. "I know today has already been filled with so many beautiful moments," he began, his voice steady but laced with something that made people lean in. "But there's one more I've been keeping just for you." Extended his free hand, and she rose, her heels clicking softly on the polished floor as she joined him beneath the canopy of fairy lights. For a moment, they stood there. Rest of the world falling away. This, he said, lifting the box slightly. Everything I couldn't fit into vows, everything I've felt since the first day I met you. The lid opened with a soft creak, and inside, in layers of ivory tissue, was a leather-bound book. The cover was worn but elegant. Her name embossed in gold. She touched it gently, as if afraid it might vanish. Looked up at him, her brows drawn in a mixture of confusion and anticipation. Open it, he urged. The first page was dated years ago, the day after their first meeting. Her breath caught. It was a letter, handwritten in his neat, slightly slanted script. She turned the page, and another letter followed, and another. One for every month they had known each other, spanning years. The early ones were short, playful observations about her laugh, bit of tilting her head when deep in thought. The way she once shared her umbrella with him even though it barely covered them both. As the pages turned, the letters deepened. He wrote about the way she inspired him, about nights they stayed up rehearsing lines until dawn. Quiet comfort of shared silences. Some letters were long, spilling into stories. Others were just a few words, like "I think I'm falling in love with you" written in the corner of a page dated months before they ever admitted it aloud. By the time she reached the last letter, her eyes were swimming. It was dated a week before the wedding. Could give you the world, I would. But I've realized you already are my world. And every moment since I met you has been a gift to me. This is just my way of giving them back to you. Pressed a book to her chest, closing her eyes. The tears finally slipping free. Gasps and sniffles rippled through the crowd. But Rowoon wasn't finished. From beneath the book, he produced a small wooden music box. He wound it slowly, and a melody began to drift through the room, a soft, hauntingly beautiful piano piece. Her eyes widened in recognition. It was the first piece she had ever played as a child. She hadn't touched in decades. "How did you?" she began. But the words dissolved into a trembling laugh. To her, Rowoon had tracked down her childhood piano teacher. Not only helped him recreate the arrangement but also recorded it for this very moment. The guests were undone. An actor dabbed at his eyes with a napkin. The young idol clutched her friend's arm, whispering, "This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." Park Eun-bin's mother wept openly. Her father nodding slowly, his face a mix of pride and gratitude. Cameras flashed, but even the photographers seemed hesitant to break the spell. As the music faded, Rowoon set the box aside and took her hands. "I wanted you to know," he said softly. "Before today. Before any of this. Every version of you I've ever met. And I wanted to give you proof that I never took a single moment for granted." She shook her head, smiling through the tears. "I don't deserve you," she whispered. He leaned in, his forehead to hers. "You're wrong," he replied. "We deserve each other." The applause that followed was thunderous, but it felt distant compared to the intimacy of the moment they had just shared. It was as if, for those few minutes, the wedding had been stripped of its grandeur and reduced to its purest form, two people, in love, promising to carry each other's histories and futures alike. The rest of the evening passed in a kind of glow. Guests approached them, some to congratulate, simply to say how moved they were. Outside, word had already begun to spread. By the time the night ended, #Rowoon gift for Eun-bin was trending worldwide. Clips of the gift reveal, shaky and imperfect from guests' phones, were shared across platforms, garnering millions of views in hours. Headlines appeared, "The most touching wedding moment of the decade. Rowoon sets new standard for wedding gifts." Eun-bin's emotional reaction melts hearts globally. Later, when the guests had gone and the hall was quiet, Rowoon and Park Eun-bin sat together near the now empty dance floor. The leather-bound book rested on her lap, tears tracing its edges. Outside, glittered. But in that moment, it might as well have been silent. "I still don't know how you pulled this off," she murmured. He smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Magic," he said simply, then added, "and a little help from the people who love you as much as I do." She leaned into him, closing her eyes. "Best gift I've ever received," she whispered. And just like that, the night closed on a love story that had already been years in the making, but felt like it was only just beginning. For everyone who had been there, and for the millions who would watch from afar, it wasn't just a wedding. It was a reminder that the most precious gifts are not the grandest, but the ones that carry the weight of time, memory, and unspoken devotion.